What's up, guys? I am Jayme Bedingfield. You are listening to my podcast, Too Many Words. New listeners and regulars alike, welcome to the show. I appreciate you tuning in. If you are driving, please be careful and kind and put that phone down. I have a fun show in store for you guys today. I talked to the fantastic Kat Howard, which is always a good time. You may remember the last time she came on to talk about her debut novel, Roses and Rot. If you haven't listened to that episode, you should go check it out after you're done with this one, of course. I've had the pleasure of having her insightful and incredibly helpful feedback on my current work in progress. So if you are in need of an editor, I would definitely look her way. I also have my review of her recent release, An Unkindness of Magicians, up here in a bit. I will get to both of those shortly. So, how's it going? What's on your plate? How's your perspective? Workload? Have you done something kind to others, yourself? These are questions I ask myself while I'm doing a self-check-in. Those are important, and I think I'm doing pretty good. I'm chugging along with work, snagging all the family time I can grab because my kids are getting older and it's weird. I'm definitely less cool. My dogs rock, and managing my overall anxiety levels, compiling coping tools. Speaking of anxiety levels, I have made the decision after a fair amount of belly aching that I will be participating in Nanowrimo this year. It feels crazy. But it's actually the perfect timing. I'm getting ready to submit 2 more short stories, making that for this fall that I've been, able to submit. And I started writing other things because my manuscript needed space from me, so that it could, become what it's supposed to be, able for me to see what I needed to. And distance can equal clarity, something to put on a mug. I took the space and I have what I need. Vision, motivation, the right amount of obsession, piles and piles and piles of notes in, various pen colors, and also in a word processor. So going through those now. I'm plenty hungry. So this is kind of a scary rewrite because of the summer of writing wrong scenes and not listening to myself. And, the fact that this is such a massive rewrite that I'm about to do, it makes me a little nervous. And, but I actually know what I'm doing now. And, I've talked to the characters, walked through the world. I know what everything smells like. So I will be using Nano this year to really light the fire under my feet, really motivate myself in a fun and different way, so I can sink my teeth into this rewrite. And you know what? I'm excited. And I'm making playlists. And I'm pumped. And are any of you participating in Nano? I know that my friend and co-writer Rebecca Clark is doing it, and a couple others that my mind's not forming their names. But if you're doing it, reach out. Let me know how it's going. We can commiserate. We can celebrate. I will be talking Nano all November, from tips to venting to declarations of grandeur. So I guess get ready for that. Yeah, I participated in Nano once before, 2 years ago, but that was a pure first draft. And, and I know so much more now. It's kind of crazy. There's certain times when you look back at a certain date and then where you are now, and you can be like, wow, so much has changed. Or, wow, I need to work on that. I've been neglecting it for 2 years. No, but I wrote close to 70 words that month, and that project is doing things somewhere. At first sight, this show is about writing and stories, but I think of the show as conversations about life, because without what makes us joyful or sad or angry, all the challenges we face, the chaos of the world, we can't control, we couldn't write. We couldn't have stories. So yeah. And speaking of worlds and magic and chaos, I'm going to transition nicely into my review of Unkindness of Magicians by Kat Howard. And to get straight to it before I, ramble about it for a few minutes, really awesome book. Wow. So yeah, every so often a book comes around that is just much more than a good read or an engaging story. Certain books feel more like a portal, like the pages are kissed with magic, and anytime you pick it up, you are 100% a part of the world, as if you were inside the pages yourself. It's those books that keep us digging through shelves. And, Unkindness of Magicians by Kat Howard was just all of it. The whole shebang. Unkindness caused, it stirred a similar feeling that I experienced when I read Harry Potter and Narnia as a child, but I felt it as an adult. Magic is, right there under our noses. Anything is possible. But much like adult life, everything costs, and sometimes that cost is just epic. So Kat threads an enchanting and mysterious, sometimes terrifying world of social climbing magicians with the familiar New York City, weaving a world both comforting and exciting and just, super dangerous. The fortune's wheel turned earlier than it should have. Powerful magical houses must get ready to hire their champions and battle to be the head of the unseen world. And, hands down, my favorite aspect of this book is Sydney. She is an unhoused magician with incredible magical talent and a fantastic backstory. And I keep my reviews spoiler free, so this will remain no different. But I will say that Sydney's character arc is a raw and relatable thing of beauty. And every character in the story is complex and stands firmly on their own feet. All of them kept my interest as, the expertly woven plot unfolded. But Sydney, she is strong, brave, and full of faults and fears. And I was rooting for her the moment she was introduced to me on the page. And character-wise, she is definitely one of the greats. Hall of Famer right there. Seriously though, I love the magic in this book. The magic is a character of its own. Lots of fantasy books have magic in them. We know this, but so seldom does the magic come across on the page as having feelings and obstacles and faults. The visuals Howard painted of the magic casted were just beautiful and never once slowed the story down. But she also gave the magic a personality. And this personality changes depending on who is using the magic. And that's just fantastic. So I'm going to call out one more awesome aspect of this book, and then you just have to go grab a copy because this is so worth reading. The relationships in this story, and there are many, are so organic and varied. And Howard juggles multiple family dynamics, and she does this with such a natural rhythm. I was invested in everyone, whether they were relationships built long before the story started or new ones that I got to witness. And so this book is by far my favorite that I read in 2017. If you haven't read it, grab a copy because you won't regret it. You can read a version of this review on my site, tmwpod.com. I will also post it on my blog, JaymeTheScribbler.com, and you can read it on Patreon. If you don't support the show yet, you like what I'm doing here, please go to patreon.com/too-many-words and pick your pledge. I really appreciate all the support. You guys, you make it possible. And I think without any more self-rambling, let's go to my talk with Kat Howard. Hey, Kat. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Getting into my new routine. I had a very frustrating writing summer, and I purposely took a little bit of time off to just get my head back. And now I am creating again and getting things done. So I am in a better spot.
Good. I think it can be really helpful to take some time sometimes when you need to and just let your head clear, refill the well, whatever it is. Burnout is a real thing, and it helps to take that time and think and start fresh.
It really does. But it's so hard to step away sometimes, especially when you feel like things aren't going well.
Yeah.
Stopping doing things seems like the worst possible thing that you can do, but in reality, it's the best. So you have had, you're having an exciting fall.
Yes.
You have the release of An Unkindness of Magicians, and new deals that you got to announce.
Yeah, so I'm very, very lucky that I'm going to get to keep working with my current publisher, Saga Press, and my current editor, Joe Monte, and some new books for you guys. We've already announced that next year's book is going to be a short fiction collection called A Cathedral of Myth and Bone, and I'm actually working on final edits for that right now.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah, some collected stuff and some new things for people too, which I'm really excited to share. And then after that, I just signed the contracts for a new two book deal with Saga, and I'm very excited. So I have things to work on for the next couple of years and things to share with everybody, and I hope that people like the stories.
That is really exciting. And they're two standalones, correct?
Correct. The first one that we talked about in the deal announcement is called A Queen for All the Worlds. And it's like a portal fantasy, but it's got, angry gods and, people who are trying to destroy the world and all the worlds and take all the magic for themselves because they're gods and they don't think that they should be dying, even though they are. And some sisters who are like, well, that's not going to happen. We're going to step in here and take care of things. But it talks about, what it's like to build a world and what it's like to be a person who travels between, that their world and our world and that kind of thing. So I'm a lot of thinking about how the pieces fit together right now.
Yes. Yeah, no, that is definitely a lot of ducks to put in a row.
And I was like, let's do something nice and easy. How about interlocking portal worlds? Oh my lord, what were you thinking, Kat?
Yep. Having gods and goddesses in a story. I mean, I found this you know, complicated on my end is, how do you have gods and goddesses and not make them just way too powerful?
Right. That there needs to be limits, and that they need to not be the person who can always, or the character who can always step in and fix things, because then it's not fun for your readers.
And hard, as the writer to have, conflicts and problems and stuff like that. If, the goddess can just, make everything around her melt, you know.
But it's fun too, because then you get to think about what it really means to have power and what are the limitations of power, and what do you do if you are normally a powerful being and you suddenly run up against a limitation, particularly when it wasn't something that's always been there. How do you react?
Just following the everlasting trail of, what if, what now questions.
Exactly.
So, Unkindness of Magicians, and I am not blowing smoke here, is my favorite book of 2017 so far.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
And I mean that just 150%. But thank you. I have not felt like reading Unkindness of Magicians, as far as like how it made me feel as a reader. It makes me think of like when I read Harry Potter as a kid for the first time,
Oh,
or Narnia. But as far as that, like, magic is right there and I can touch it, is just amazing. And you did it in a way that's relatable as an adult. It's this gorgeous, enchanting world, but it's also gritty and dangerous. And costly. And it's just, wow.
Thank you.
Wow. I'm gonna have to reread it because there's as I got to the end, I was just like, oh, there's gotta be little things that I missed just because it all comes together so well.
Good. It was a bit of a challenge to write. I think I rewrote the opening probably third of it at least like 10 times because I really needed to get the setup to make things come together correctly. So it's really lovely to hear that I actually managed to pull it off.
No, definitely. You pulled it off in spades. But as the writer part of me, as I was reading it, I was thinking about you and just all the details that you had to manage there.
I keep a lot of notes while I'm writing, especially once I get out of the draft process and I'm into the revision process. I'll just have page after page of, make sure this connects and be sure and do this and go back and put this in. So it's a very much, I tend to write very, very short, spacious first drafts. I don't even like to call them first drafts. I call them zero drafts because there's so little that's actually there, but it's enough for me to get the feeling of what I want to do on the paper and what is working and what isn't. And then it's a lot of going back and making sure that things are filled out and that things are built in. And this book in particular was like that. It was just layer after layer after layer of, okay, do I have it this time? Is it there on the page?
Yeah, well, that's one thing that I'm learning that I need to do is that when I am initially drafting, I can't really look at it or reread it. I just need to put my head down and just get to the end so I don't get stuck and break a whole bunch of stuff before I really know what it is.
It's exactly what it feels like. You're like, all of a sudden, you're like, yay, 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 it's good. And then you open the oven before the souffle is ready, and you're like, oh, no.
Yes. Yep. Just a whole bunch of, exploded Legos on the ground. And it's like, what did I
And then
do?
you step on them in your bare feet, and then it's just no good at all.
Yep. And then you get them sucked up in the vacuum cleaner and it's
Yep.
time for tea.
Yeah, we are at a bad level of disaster now.
Yep. Rewriting, and I was rewriting things. I was writing scenes that didn't need to exist for the story that I was telling.
Well, and I think too, like I know there are writers out there who are able to, they work from outlines and they know a lot of things going in and stuff like that. But I think that there is value in learning what doesn't belong in your story. Like you mentioned, the scenes that didn't need to be there, and I feel like I wish that I would just know that off the top of my head. Oh yeah, you don't need to do this, you don't need to do that. But I feel like a lot of the time, like I have to write it to realize that it doesn't work. And then when I think about why it doesn't work or why it wasn't the scene that I needed, that's usually when I can come up with, okay, but this is the thing that will work. This is what you do need to put in there.
No, totally. Yeah, sometimes you need to write 20,000 words that, you're not going to use in order to find the 5,000 that you are going to use.
Right.
Well, and it's a tricky game of trusting yourself and listening to yourself. And I just something that I'm working on is learning what is the helpful voice that's saying, "Hey, Jayme, this isn't right." Or,
Mm-hmm.
the unconstructive, critiquer that's just like, this is crap, Jayme. Why are you even bothering? It's a different, one voice is helpful, one isn't. Sometimes it's hard to know which voice is which.
Right. And and if you're already tired or frustrated or worn out or whatever, it's a lot easier to let that unhelpful voice be the loud one because it's so good at being loud.
It's true. It's like the over caffeinated relative. Now, as far as you guys that are listening to the show, towards the end of the show, I'm going to ask. You guys are going to have plenty of notice, but I'm going to ask Kat some questions. We're going to talk about a couple of things about Unkindness of Magicians that will be most likely spoilers, and some of them definitely if you haven't read the book yet. So that'll be at the end. But there is something that I wanted to talk to you about, Kat, that creating any work of fiction is a complicated journey, as we were just talking about. But I was wondering if there was, initial starting point for unkindness that you can point to as, the beginning of what is now, Unkindness of Magicians.
Sure. And I actually did a quick piece about this that's up on John Scalzi's blog, his whatever, the big idea pieces. But there were sort of two parts to the big idea behind unkindness. One of which was the word excantation. I think most of us who read fantasy and who know what magic is, we've heard of an incantation, the beginning of a spell. An excantation is an ending of magic, an ending of an enchantment. And I was like, oh, well, this is a great word. I love this word. I want to write a book about this word. Except you sort of have to have more than a word if you're going to write an entire book. And so I started thinking about, what would the circumstances be in which magic might end? How do you get to that point? Which then made me think of, well, what would a magic system look like if it was going to be ending? And there's this bit in Peter S. Beagle's The Last Unicorn, easy for me to say, where it talks about, if you're going to do magic, you can't offer up someone else's liver and expect it to work. You have to cut out your own and not expect to get it back. And I was
I love that.
Right? I mean, that book is so, so, so good. But I was like, okay, so here's what I can do. I can have this entire society of magicians who are basically, not trying to pay with their own livers, they're trying to pay with somebody else's. And so that's why magic would be ending, because that's bad. That's really bad. We don't do that to people.
That's awesome.
So and that's where it came from. So
that's cool. I'm excited to learn that. It's New York City, it's got its mystique and charm and history and this whole vibe to it all itself. And you play off that with by adding the unseen world. Just it comes together so beautifully. And when there's scenes where you feel the New York, but then, you have the unseen world. How was that, as far as making that happen? Was that something that one of those things that you needed to, keep going back to and making sure that it was working, or is it just kind of?
It's a city that I love. New York is a city that I love, but it's never been a city that I lived in. So part of it was just, okay, does your mental map match up with what is actually going on? And I'm sure that I wound up making, some mistakes somewhere just because I can get lost in a place that I know. It's one of my great talents. So I'm sure there's minor things, but I wanted the feel of modern, and I wanted the feel of a place that was large enough to have its own sort of mythology, its own sort of mystery. Even if you've never been to New York, you probably have some kind of idea. It may well be a wrong idea, but you probably have some kind of idea what to expect there. There's already this built up thing that fits in people's mind of what it might be like. And so I could use that like I would use any other sort of mythology to make it feel more or less magic when I needed to.
Well, yeah, and you're right. Even, I live in Seattle now, and there's a lot of people who have never been to New York City, but anytime it comes up in conversation, because I grew up very close to it, there is this, people talk about it with this misty-eyed almost, like, oh, Manhattan, New York City, I've always wanted to be there, or, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like, you've never been there in July when all the trash is out, have you?
Yeah, that's right. You haven't smelled the garbage.
But it's still great. I mean, there's, I joke about that, but it's great. It's such a great place. And there are so many things there. Like, it's a place that lends itself to a belief in magic,
Oh, definitely.
The work that I had to do to make the magic fit into that place was very, very small, because there's so many wonderful and horrible and, excellent things about that city. And so magic just fit in very well.
Oh, definitely. No, I remember, as a teenager, I would go into the village a lot. Sometimes when I was supposed to be, and sometimes when I, was supposed to be doing something else. I mean, I could very easily just hop on the path from, very close, not too far from my house and just go on in there. And I remember there was this one Friday that I was, me and a couple of my friends, I was young too at that time. I was like 15, maybe 16. And just me and a group of friends, and we were walking around and it gotten dark and we got lost. And there was, I still remember because it was gaining on Thanksgiving. So the leaves were still, they're all changing and stuff, and there's wind. And I just remember seeing the shadows. We're maneuvering through like all these, tighter streets and the shadows. And I remember it's just like, I think there's demons following us.
Yeah.
But it does, there is definite hints of magic in New York City if you feel like paying attention to it. Is there something, that you particularly enjoyed about Unkindness, creating it?
I really liked writing Sydney. She's one of my favorite characters that I've ever written. And I really had fun when I got to put the magical duels in.
I bet. I mean, those were fun to read. Thinking them up must have been just a blast.
There's a lot of darkness and not niceness in the book, and so then it was like, okay, but cool, magic battle, which and I've loved the idea of a wizard's duel since watching Mad Madam Mim and Merlin on The Sword and the Stone, and so I was just like, all right, here we go, I can do this over and over.
Totally. Well, and I love them too because they were so beautiful and so visual, but also, not one of them, 'cause sometimes, when you're reading the description of magic, and as a writer, I can, I fall into this sometimes, is that you can just really just over describe and kind of slow down the scene. You don't do that at all. I mean, it is, each one of them very visual, really intense, but yeah, it stays right in the action. Yeah, Sydney is awesome. I love her. I loved reading her, and she had a couple of moments where I was just like, that was badass.
Good. That was exactly what I was going for.
To switch gears a little, I follow you on Twitter, and I look forward to your cats and yoga posts.
Oh no. They think they should help. They're not helpful.
I hear you. I do yoga. I try to do it every morning because it just helps me have less anxiety throughout the day if I start the day doing yoga. And I have 3 dogs that like to help me do yoga.
Oh, no.
And sometimes it's ridiculous. I have each one of my dogs has a different reaction, and my golden retriever Sally, who is the oldest, she's pretty chill unless if I like go into like a superhero pose. She just can't stand it, and she has to come up and slap me.
Yeah, I have 2 cats, and Maeve in particular likes to help with yoga, which sometimes is nice because, like, if I'm sitting, cross-legged or like doing more breath work and meditation part of it, she'll just like sort of get in my lap and purr, and that's really nice and good. But like, I'll be in child's pose and she'll come and climb on my head, which is then makes it difficult to get out of child's pose. Or I'll be in downward dog and she'll like get right underneath where I need to be back on the mat and just be like, no, this is my spot now. I am also doing the yoga.
Is Maeve the big fuzzy?
Maeve is the tiny black one. She's my genius cat, and Viola is the fuzzy baby who likes to get her belly out all the time and be silly.
She has an epic belly.
She does have it, but it's the best. And she's one of those cats who actually genuinely loves having her belly rubbed. And so I'm just like, oh, this is the best cat belly. It's soft and fuzzy and I can squish it.
Oh, that's awesome. No, I have Mo, who is a big fluffy squish belly as well, but he'll show me the belly, but if I touch it, I'm in for it.
Uh-oh.
So do you do yoga at home also? Have you tried Yoga Glow at all?
I have not. I do yoga with Adrienne videos.
Okay.
And she's very like calming to me and makes me like, she has a good way of describing things so that people like me who are perhaps not naturally physically graceful can feel like they know what they're doing. And so I really appreciate that.
Nice. I was doing a lot of the videos too, and I recently just made a switch to Yoga Glow, which is it's a studio based out of I want to say LA maybe,
Mhm.
and they do they stream their classes.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, I like it because you can basically like if I have 10 minutes and I'm like I need 10 minutes to chill out
Mhm.
and recenter myself, you can just pull it up and have like a 10-minute session if you need it.
Oh, cool.
Anxiety has been a thing for me, so I've been trying to give myself more tools.
Yes, yeah, yoga is definitely part of that.
Oh, there's something about holding yourself in a stretched position for a certain amount of breaths. You have to. That just puts your brain as in like in the present, and I think that part of the exercise is really helpful for me because I like to plan 3 years ahead of time even though I have no control over what happens tomorrow.
Right. We just need time turners.
There we go. Yeah, like I don't know. I would probably horribly misuse any kind of thing like that. Like cuz I was just going to say like if I had some sort of orb where I can like yeah, I would figure out a way to like get in there and I don't know, do something. I'd probably want I'm one of those somewhat crooked magicians probably.
Uh-oh.
And then real quick, if you guys for those of you who are listening who are writers and need an awesome editor, Kat is definitely that. She looked at my current project for me and her edit letter is making all of it into a book now. So
Yay, I'm so glad.
you can go to her website and find out information about how to contact her for editing.
Yep, and I love working with writers to help them find the book that they're trying to write.
Kat, can you tell everybody where to find you before we get into the spoiler part of the episode?
Absolutely. You can find me quite often on Twitter. I'm Cat with Sword, and that is definitely the place to go if you would like your share of cat yoga stories or pictures of Viola getting her belly out, which she does with great joy. Um, and I do have a website as well, Cat Howard Books, and that does. I need to update it because I think that I don't have anything about Unkindness of Magicians actually on there. But you can find out basic information, and there's contact info there too. So, and I'm always happy to talk to people.
Awesome. And so, for those of you who have not read Unkindness of Magicians, stop listening, read the book, and then come back and listen to this part of it. And if you guys, have read it, stay with us because I'm excited for the next part.
All right, secrety bits.
Secrety bits. Okay, so this question is definitely spoilers. So again, if you you have not read it, get out, come back. Um, so this cat, this popped in my head as I was reading the scenes. Was it hard taking Sydney's powers away?
Oh my gosh, yes. I tried really, really, really hard to find some other way to get them out of the story to make it work. And every time I did, it was flat and it was wrong. And I feel really bad for doing that, but that was the right thing for the story, and it was the right choice. And it was a choice. She made the choice. She could have done something else. It was the right choice for her character to have made. It was not fun. Every time I'd go through that section in edits, I'd be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry."
I bet. No, when I was reading it and I was, it was clear what was happening. I was like, oh. And then there was moments I was like, okay, she's gonna get it. She's gonna get it back. She's gonna get her magic back. And when she doesn't, I mean, it is totally 100% like an awesome way to end it. An awesome, it definitely, realistic for Sydney to do it that way. But oh man, it hit me right in the gut. I was like, oh,
Yeah, I
wish
think
I
she's
got.
probably not too happy with me.
Well, watch out if she ever gets her powers back. She's one impressive magician. Also, you juggle so many complicated family dynamics, and it's all so complicated relationship wise, but also different feeling. Just completely different dynamic between Gray and Miranda and Miles and Ian. Was that challenging? It feels like it what would be.
I like writing family dynamics. I think partially because I have a good relationship with my own family. So I have like in my real life, things are very secure and stuff like that. And so I don't have the additional tension of I'm going to write this and it makes me feel uncomfortable, kind of thing that might happen. And so I think, families can be really complicated and they can be great sources of support to us, but they can also be huge sources of conflict and trauma to us, depending on what those relationships look like. And so I wanted to, have a world, especially a world like this, where, power gets traded generation upon generation. And, there's all this sort of ideas of tradition and what magic should look like and who should get to practice and all the rest of that. Like I had to have family drama in there or it wouldn't have been realistic. My magicians would have been so weird. But like it made sense for there to be that kind of thing. And so you think about, well, okay, this is what makes a good familial relationship. This is what makes these things work. How do I reverse that and make that bond go badly? What happens when it does?
Like you said, family can be really complicated, and in that kind of you have these powerful houses and all these secrets, all this magic. There's definitely going to be some family drama there.
Right. And I wanted to show, like, with Ian and Laura, the two Merlin kids, too, that, that it could also, they don't always understand each other, but there's definitely love and support there. And so I
Yeah.
wanted to show, like, it's not always bad. It's not always terrible. It's not always, weird and strange. It can also be, good and strange, or they can find ways to like it can still be a source of strength for the characters as well as a source of conflict for the story.
Definitely. Well, and that came through too. Laura and Ian, they have just a few, just really, sweet touch-in moments that are, they were almost comforting, especially among everything else that's going on. Speaking of Ian, so Ian and Sydney's relationship
Mhm.
felt so incredibly organic and real to me, the way it just kind of it was it you know they they hooked up pretty quick, and then there was this kind of friendship that built. Was that one of those jewels that kind of came out as you were writing it, or did you set out knowing that those two would have a relationship?
That was something that sort of worked its way in. I knew that there was going to be difficulty between them before I knew there was going to be a relationship between them. And I was like, oh, I could make this even worse when they have to fight. Okay, good.
Yes, no, it was very complicated, but just honest relationship between the two of them, and I.
It's nice that you said that because that was one of the things that I wanted to come out that like in a place with a ton of secrets, like neither of them are really telling it. They might not be telling each other absolutely everything, but they're not keeping secrets from themselves about what they're doing and why they're there.
Where they were at the end, it was just, and the bit with the balcony, I was one of my more, favorite parts of the story was that relationship. And I wasn't expecting it to go that way. And, when the changes of, who was head of the house, and that when I realized that they were going to have to fight, I was just like, what? And then one more thing.
Sure.
Conquering Gray was such a big moment. The group of women who came together and, just defeated him. And this is a man that's just done horrible things to women and stealing their magic. That must have been quite a scene or scenes to write.
It felt pretty cathartic, and it was funny because every time I'd pass it to my editor and he'd be like, "Are you sure you can't make that scene longer? He just really needs to suffer. He's such a bastard. He just really needs to suffer." And I was like, "Nope, this is what you got. He doesn't get to show off it because he wouldn't.
Yeah.
But my actual favorite was right before that when he gets trapped and Madison tells him that she hope a dog pisses on him like he's a fire hydrant.
Yeah.
That was my favorite. You know what? That's what you deserve for what you done.
No, I loved that too, and it was a great film.
That was one of my favorite moments in writing the entire book. I was like, yes, okay, good.
Well, yeah, that's one of the benefits of, being able to, write these scenes is you can have your characters just say these awesome things that you wouldn't be able to say right on the spot had it been the time.
Every so often being the person in charge pays off.
It's true. And thank you so much for coming on the show again. It was so much fun talking to you. It's my pleasure.
My actual favorite was right before that when he gets trapped and Madison tells him that she hope a dog pisses on him like he's a fire hydrant.
Yeah.
That was my favorite. You know what? That's what you deserve for what you done.
No, I loved that too, and it was a great film.
That was one of my favorite moments in writing the entire book. I was like, yes, okay, good.
Well, yeah, that's one of the benefits of, being able to, write these scenes is you can have your characters just say these awesome things that you wouldn't be able to say right on the spot had it been the time.
Yeah. Every so often being the person in charge pays off.
It's true. And thank you so much for coming on the show again. It was so much fun talking to you.
And thank you for having me back, Jayme. I really appreciated it.
It's my pleasure. And that does it for today. A big thanks to Kat for coming on the show and you guys for tuning in. Remember to subscribe to the show and your favorite place to listen to podcasts. Follow me on Twitter at @MeBettingfield and the show at Too Many Words Pod. Find us both on Facebook on the same names. And of course, go to my site, tmwpod.com. Support the show on patreon.com/too many words. And I'll talk to you next week.